The Galen Hour Season 2. The best little zoo in the world. Tonight joining us is Mr. Salsa Pot, the director of the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, and Mr. Jamal Anjuin Bone, the conservation program manager of the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center.
Good night and welcome to Season 2 of the Galen Hour. I am Diana Gomez Perifit and I'm your host. So if you joined us last season, you know that we talked a lot about our soaring eagles. This season, we're still going to incorporate our soaring eagles because our theme when we do Galen Hour is academic excellence, sustainable development, and lifelong learning. We want to focus on sustainable development for this season. So the Galen Hour is a production of Galen University. It airs every Thursday night at 8 o'clock on Love TV. It streams on Love Facebook and Galen Facebook page. To start this season, we'll be going on Facebook page first at 8 o'clock on Thursday nights, and then we will be replaying on Sundays at 3 o'clock. A little later in the season, we'll come back as we normally did and what our normal schedule should be, and we'll start live 8 o'clock on Thursday nights. It gives me much pleasure to be here with you tonight. This is going to be an exciting season. We're going to talk about development in our country. With us tonight, we have two fantastic guests. We have directors and managers from the Belize Zoo. This episode is called The Best Little Zoo in the World. That's what our zoo is called. And so I thought that was such a fitting name for a program. And so I welcome you back to Season 2 of the Galen Hour. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with our two guests. Thank you, welcome, and good night.
I chose Galen because of its strong reputation, great scholarships.
I came because I can take all my classes online.
I was happy to see the emphasis placed on thinking, research, and writing. It is what I need to take me where I want to go.
I like the way my professors use non-traditional activities to evaluate my progress.
I am very grateful for the wide range of support that helps me to do my utmost best. Everything from tutoring to personal counseling, including the writing lab, the success center, and the e-library.
Galen gave me the tools to turn my passion for archaeology into a career.
If you want to connect with your inner champion to make the world a better place, then Galen is right for you. Apply online at our website and come soar with the Galen Eagles.
Welcome back to the Galen Hour. I'm your host, Diana Gomez Perifit. With us tonight, we have two members of our zoo. Celso Put, the director of the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, is with us tonight. Welcome, Celso. And we also have with us Jamal Anjuin Bone, who is a conservation program manager. Welcome, Jamal. So, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Diana, and thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we've been wanting to meet with the zoo and have the zoo on our show since last season, but I think it's just such a good start for our second season. And we have some really exciting things to talk about. As I mentioned earlier, we want to bring sustainability as a key theme for this season. And I wanted us to look at the zoo with respect to sustainability and particularly climate change. Because sometimes we forget, because we're living in a pandemic, of how important it is for us to not ignore climate change. And it's happening, and we wanted to look at the zoo, all that you're doing, but also not to forget to talk about the sustainability of it in relation to what's happening in our environment. So I welcome you, and I wanted to start the discussion by asking you to tell us a bit about the zoo. How many types of animals you have there? How do they get there? I mean, so Celso, do you want to start?
Well, thanks for having us again. It's a pleasure to be on the Galen Hour. Would like to share with you as much as possible about the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, as well as about sustainability. Sustainability, I mean, could be economy, could be the environment, it could be the people. So we can look at sustainability from different perspectives. I like your introduction, the best little zoo in the world, and it wasn't us who coined that actually. It was one of the travel magazine that said the Belize Zoo is the best little zoo in the world. And of course, we love that. So we take that and we run with it. We are the best zoo in the world.
We are.
Best little zoo in the world, hands down. But the zoo is very unique because the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center only hosts animals native to Belize. And this go back to when the founder, Sharon Matola, started the zoo. Sharon was surprised that there were not a lot of literature, a lot of information about Belizean animals, and people were more aware and were more in tune with animals from abroad. So animals you see in magazines, animals you see on TV. And that's the reason why she started the Belize Zoo and later the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, basically to bring the people of Belize closer to the animals of Belize, to bring the people of Belize closer to appreciate and understand, and then advocate for the protection of their wildlife, which is our natural heritage.
Yes.
In some instances, our cultural heritage, because wildlife and culture play a big role in Belize.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Yes, one of the questions I was going to ask was, do we only house native animals? And so you've rightly said yes, it's animals native to our country. Jamal, you wanted to say something on as an intro as well to the types of animals. How do our animals end up in the zoo? Where do we find them? I know they're native to Belize, but where do they come from?
Absolutely, Ms. Diana, and thanks for that excellent question. And we have received the query over time about other animals. Like, so whenever I get one kangaroo or elephant at the Belize Zoo, and the answer is always a polite no, for the same reasons that Celso outlined. The reason that Sharon started the zoo and the mission of the zoo continues to be to focus on Belize's natural heritage. So there's no need for exotics, there's no need for foreign animals to be part of that. And by the nature of how we get our animals, it's also a core of the foundation of the zoo. So the zoo, unlike many other zoos around the world and the old style of zoos, we don't just take animals from the wild for show. It's way more than just recreation and casual enjoyment at the animals. I would say more than 75% of the animals at the zoo, at the Belize Zoo, are there because they have literally nowhere else to go. They were rescued from very dire situations. A lot of them were found orphaned, injured, abandoned, after a forest fire or forest clearing or a hunting incident where the parents were hunted and the babies were left behind. Some of them were confiscated from the illegal pet trade because it is illegal to keep any sort of wildlife as a pet in Belize. By law, they're protected. A few were born here at the zoo, or some were given up willingly. So people may have found them as a young one and realized maybe not the best idea for going one baby ocelot or one baby jaguar in my house or in my yard. And they willingly give it up to the forest department or the zoo. And so they are brought to the zoo for long-term care, for a second life. And then they in turn become representatives of their species. So they're here to meet people in a safe learning environment, whereas they otherwise may never have been encountered by a lot of Belizeans. I'm sure, Ms. Diana, I don't know if you've ever seen a jaguar in the wild, for example, even glimpsed one or seen a footprint of one, but a lot of Belizeans go their whole life without actually encountering these animals face to face. Yeah. So the zoo gives that wonderful opportunity to meet them in a natural environment.
Yes, what the zoo brings to our people is fantastic. Celso, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it's important to note as well that whichever animal we rehabilitate and we could release back into the wild, we release them back. So we don't keep animal at the zoo for keepsake. I mean, a lot of birds, snakes, small mammals, we've released them back into the wild in safe places. Sometimes they come dehydrated or with minor injuries, and along with the vet team, we actually bring them back to good health and then release them. So not every animal you hear end up at the zoo, stay at the zoo. Yeah. Of course, we haven't made much noise about the ones we release because we want them to have a safe life out there. So nobody know why we release the animals then. But not every animal that come to the zoo stay at the zoo. Those that stay at the zoo cannot make it back into the wild. Some animals, once they become imprinted by humans, so they become used to us, they associate human with food, with feeding, and so they stay around us. And if you release them back into the wild, they will return to that habit. So we keep them at the zoo as ambassador animals.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, this actually leads us into some of what we will talk about a little later, some of the services that the zoo provides to our country and our animals. But I wanted to answer Jamal's question. No, I haven't seen a jaguar face, but I've seen eyes, and I was like, yes, I think that's a jaguar. And then I had a grandmother who lived in Boom when I was growing up, and in that area was still more bushy, and so we'd see footprints in the mornings in the yard. So that is my closest encounter, other than coming to the zoo and actually seeing. So we really are able to see the animals that share our space by coming to our wonderful Belizean zoo. I think it's just fantastic. I wanted to
but
talk.
To answer your question, how many animals we had at the zoo? I mean, species-wise, we have about 45 species of different Belizean animals. So birds, mammals, reptiles. And that represent about how many individuals, Jamal?
That's at the moment we have close to 200 individual animals represented by those species. So the social animals, especially, like there's quite a few parrots or monkeys. There's quite a few jaguars at the zoo because of the human jaguar conflict program that the zoo provides. So yeah, about 200 animals that need daily feeding every single day at the zoo.
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful how we give them names and they become ambassadors. We have children who actually mourn the passing of some of the animals that they grew up knowing from the time they were babies, and then they pass. If I'm not mistaken, was it the jaguar or the mountain lion that passed? I mean, the mountain cow that passed, or both?
Both.
Yeah, the original one was.
I mean, April was actually a household name in Belize. For 30 years, everybody went to the zoo for April birthday. And it reached to the point where I saw kids coming to the zoo for April birthday, and then a decade later, they start bringing their kids to April birthday. So I witnessed 2 generations celebrating April birthday. But the most famous in our time right now would be Junior Buddy the jaguar. Junior was really, really a charismatic animal, and everybody fell in love with Junior, who went to the zoo.
Yes, I think my daughter remembers Junior Buddy, and she's all excited when she heard about him, and sad as well. So, but yes, and so lots of our young people would never have actually known for sure what our animals look like other than in books. So I just have to give kudos to Sharon Matola and to you two gentlemen who continue her legacy and provide such wonderful opportunities for us locally, but for foreigners who visit our country. And the zoo is always a wonderful stop for everybody. Right, so yes, but I wanted to also talk about the country. Cayo is such a beautiful country. I grew up partly in Cayo, and you can't tell me that Cayo isn't the most beautiful district in our country. And when I drive here now for Galen, it even reminds me more so why I got homesick every time I jumped that Roaring Creek bridge and just see the lush vegetation. But I wanted to say, having the zoo in this part of our country, I think is fantastic. I don't know if it was just by accident, it was just where the land was, but how does it work for the purpose of our zoo? It's in a natural habitat. It seems to be the perfect fit, but maybe you can shed a little bit of light on if there were challenges that you faced because of where we're located.
One of the biggest challenges we face at the zoo is maintenance and upkeep of the exhibits, because we try our best to keep and house our animals in a natural setting as possible. And that is very costly. I mean, people who have to do repairs to their houses, the tropics is very taxing on these building materials and stuff like that. But the zoo, actually, the different habitats you see in the zoo have evolved over the years, because the zoo was built up in a savanna environment. And so we had to provide a lot of shade. We had to provide some natural trees for shade within the zoo. And so if you look at the zoo, it's a little bit different than the environment surrounding it, immediately surrounding it, because it's open savanna. But over the years, we've provided what we call natural enrichment for the animals. So trees and branches and stuff like that they're used to in the wild. We've provided those for the animals in their exhibit. And like I said, it's very costly to maintain though, because you want to have it as natural as possible. I mean, we don't want to be building brick walls and those kind of things. So we keep it as natural as possible. So very costly to maintain.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to use just the vegetation and or the flora and fauna as a segue into talking about climate change, really. Because I know it impacts all of our lives, but I wanted to talk about how it's impacting our wildlife and how the zoo fits into this overall grander scheme of things, and what, as small as we may look to the ordinary eyes, just how much a zoo can contribute to mitigation and to adaptation when we talk about climate change. So maybe if we could talk a little bit then and hear from you about what are some of the things that you're already seeing change. Are you seeing differences in your animals, certain diseases, the vegetation changing and how it's impacting the zoo? If we could hear that part of your challenges, that would be interesting. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The zoo is sort of a controlled environment, so we can't talk about climate change directly to the zoo from when you look at the vegetation and the immediate zoo itself. But when you look at the environment around the zoo, you can see the impacts, you can see the effects of climate change. Mm-hmm. Directly how climate change impacts the zoo is on our source of water. Mm-hmm. So we get water from a naturally made pond. And over the last decade, we've had to invest heavily to make that pond larger, deeper, and also we've tried to put vegetation around it so that we can help with maintaining or reducing evaporation around the pond. Mm-hmm. But extended dry season, I remember probably 4 years ago, we literally had to truck in water. We had to buy water. We used to spend about $1,500 a week the trucking in water to the zoo.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
These animals, they require fresh water on a daily basis, like the tapirs. All the tapirs pond them, we have to provide them with fresh water on a daily basis. The crocodiles, the wading birds, all of them need water. And so it was very costly to us during those extended dry season. Mm-hmm. Another way how the zoo is impacted by climate change is by fire, and Jamal can talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Fire, and that's, I'm sure, is an obvious one for everyone as we think about climate change, especially for Belize. And fire is a natural part of the lowland savanna that surrounds the zoo. It's like any grassland anywhere in the world. Fire is not always bad. It's part of the ecology. It helps with maintaining the savanna ecosystem. If you don't have fire, then grasslands revert to being forest and a completely different landscape and different ecosystem dynamic. But as we can imagine, too much fire is bad, right? It goes beyond just helping with germination and keeping the regime of grassland species and helping with fruiting and opening up new pathways. Too much fire destroys the vegetation. It can be permanently. Even the species like palm and our Caribbean pine that are made to be fire resistant can get impacted severely and end up decaying or dying over many years. And then of course, those species that provide food and shelter for animals are removed. And going beyond animals, those species that we know that are very valuable culturally and economically for the communities in the savanna areas. Everybody knows that we harvest pine for building, for construction. People harvest the palms for building lobster trap and fencing. People get a lot of medicinal value from a lot of the savanna species. So everybody is impacted with too much fire. And then it starts going into the route of removing the ability of these ecosystems to prevent erosion, to retain water during the rainy season, and it goes into flooding and that sort of thing. So fire is a big issue for us. It often threatens the zoo's assets. It threatens the zoo. It threatens our properties. Mm-hmm. It causes wildlife to have to flee the area and sometimes even get caught in fires. So We have, for example, the endangered yellow-headed parrots that nest only in pine savanna around the zoo and other savanna ecosystems around the country. If their pine trees get burnt out or their chicks have not fledged yet, those can literally burn up. It can impact young tapirs or any animals that are vulnerable in the area. So one of the ways the zoo has responded to this directly, we are part of a larger group of organizations in central Belize that are preserving what we call the Maya Forest Corridor. So the zoo sits right in the heart of this corridor, this landscape that allows free movement of wildlife and so on. A lot of it is broadleaf forest, but obviously savanna too. So savanna is our biggest concern. So last year, the zoo was able to lead the effort to secure financial support from the US Embassy to formulate a fire management program for Central Belize. And this was really pushed by the fact that, again, it wasn't only animals suffering. Last year, during the height of the pandemic, Ms. Diana, you may recall that we were in the lockdown and we couldn't even leave our houses for extended periods. Yeah. And during the peak of the dry season, there were an incredible amount of active fires. We actually did a count. There is a website you can visit to look at fires live where they're happening anywhere in the world. And there were thousands of active fires in the region. And I think in May of 2020 alone, there were over 230 consecutive fires happening simultaneously around Belize. So that that caused a lot of smoke being produced, a lot of inhalation of smoke by people stuck in their homes, people with respiratory issues, people already dealing with COVID. So that was really a driver for us to realize this isn't going to get better. Climate change is going to make this worse. We'll have more frequent, more intense fires, most likely in the years to come. And so with that idea of bridging public health, landscape health, animal health, and just the preservation of our natural resources, we managed to get the support from the embassy to formulate this. So the zoo and its partners are now working on training up personnel in this area to be able to respond to wildfires, to suppress them, to reduce that smoke impact, but also to do preventative fires. So again, fire can be used as a tool to prevent future fires, if you think of it. If you burn at the right time of year and the right amount of acreage, the fire not catch you off guard, right? It won't catch you in the middle of the night and everybody to sleep and threaten a community or a property or an area that has very important wildlife. So the zoo, that's what we've been working towards this past year, is building up the capacity in the area to manage fires more effectively for the benefit of the public and of our wildlife.
Oh, great. I know this area, I mean, when it's dry season, just driving the highway is treacherous almost, and there's forever smoke. And we hear about Belmopanese and talking about how difficult it is to breathe. So I can just imagine the animals who have their own challenges. Celso, you wanted to add something to?
Yeah, we actually have a couple species that reach the zoo because of fire. Basically, they were caught in fire. We have one tapir actually in a fuego. He reached the zoo because of fire. We have also monkeys that reached the zoo because of fire. They got separated from their parent. Also, I mean, flooding, these extreme floodings. Everybody remember during the pandemic, we actually received an orphan ocelot. And the Tamandua?
Yes. So several orphans due to flooding last year.
7 orphans due to flooding. So they get displaced. They lost their parent, and then they become orphan in the forest and can't fend for themselves. Sadly, they come to the zoo and then they become imprinted, and we have to keep them.
Yeah, it is just fantastic listening to both of you, the stories behind the animals that are in our zoo. That we go there, we appreciate what we see, but many of us don't think about how the animals got there, what goes into ensuring the animals are safe, and for us to watch and enjoy. And I know a zoo is more than just for the pleasure. I mean, it is an educational center as well. Before I forget, I wanted to say I love the names that you give to the animals. It's always representative of something or how they got there. I was researching a little bit and I saw that there's a crocodile named Rose, and I'm like, how does a crocodile get the name Rose? But it's always just so attractive and enjoyable. And then these names stick and we start referring to them by their names. So for example, Panama is a favorite of Galen University for obvious reasons. And we'll talk about that after our break. You know, Panama is the harpy eagle, and the harpy eagle is our mascot. And Celso is an eagle. He doesn't sit in the cage with Panama, but he is one of our proud eagles. And
I do have some eaglets coming in. Actually, my daughter graduated from Galen, and I have 2 daughters at Galen right now. I have some eaglets coming in.
We have some eaglets coming. We need to rope you in, Jamal. You need to join the eagle family.
Absolutely.
And you can do that. You don't have to necessarily graduate, although we encourage everybody, but you can be part of our faculty, part of our network. So, and I do thank you for being here today. Before we take a break, and we'll take a break shortly, I know, Celso, you had started answering by saying the zoo is a controlled entity, and yes, it is. But I would think because of that, it lends itself really well to climate change research and to testing to see how animals react to changes that are happening in the environment in a controlled setting. So I'm not sure, and I do know that you have relationships with external universities and researchers. I don't know if there's anything happening at this time that you could share with us where we're using our beautiful little zoo to assist with research in the climate change area.
Directly, we don't. Unfortunately, research takes up a lot of funding, and we're struggling to survive on a daily basis right now, especially during the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, research takes up a lot of your budget, and the zoo, as I said, it's a controlled environment. The habitat is controlled, so a lot of the animals are imprinted. You would want to do, while you can do studies within the zoo environment, you would want to do more of these studies in the natural environment where you can really investigate what is going on. One such thing we're doing is with the tapirs. You know, I think you're very familiar with tapirs getting hit by cars on the road. But we're looking at how, personally, it's my work, but give the zoo all the credit for it. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the zoo. It's looking at how human disturbances influence tapir occurrences in central Belize area. And you have several variables that, water, we know, is something that is very important for tapirs. So less water means that the tapirs might be moving farther across the landscape. We can just go right near to Mexico in the Calakmul forest, where water is a very limited resources, and so the wildlife in that area, they have to really move large distances, so they have to expend a lot of energetic fuels to reach and meet their daily needs. And so we're looking at tapir in central Belize from that perspective, how human disturbance, and when disturbance could be the road, it could be the fire, it could be the naturally made water holes. Some animals become dependent on these water holes, and if these water holes dry up, then you don't find them around. And so we're looking at those in the field. But to answer your question, no, we're not doing any research in the zoo itself.
Oh, yeah, well, good. Good to know. But at least we know that we do have that opportunity to be a critical part of our climate change and contributing to that in that way. Yeah. So, so I'm enjoying this conversation, gentlemen. But I would like for us to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk some more about our Belize Zoo. Thank you.
Galen University is offering a Master's in Development Studies program starting this spring semester, January 2022. A general information session will be held on October 8, 2021 from 12 o'clock noon to 1 o'clock p.m. For more information on how to join us, contact us at 615-3129. Our Galen University family urges you to take the stand with us to get vaccinated so that we can live healthier and safer lives.
I am Dr. Eve Aird, your provost. I took the COVID-19 vaccine for my husband's health, my family's health, and for my health. And most especially for your health, for the health of the Galen faculty, staff, and students, and for Belize's health. Join me in taking the COVID-19 vaccine so we can return to campus in September, confident that we are in a safe, healthy environment, and so that we can help Belize to recover from this COVID-19 pandemic.
Let's get together and save our country. Get vaccinated today.
I'm Dr. Sylvia Cattouz, Dean of the Faculty of Management and Entrepreneurship, and I'm fully vaccinated. I get vaccinated for the sake of my students, my family, and colleagues. I urge all our students and all of Belize to get vaccinated.
For the safety of our country, get vaccinated today.
I'm Sherry Gibbs, the Dean for the Faculty of Art, Science, and Technology. I got vaccinated because I trust the science, but because I also want to protect my family, my colleagues, and my students. I can't wait to see them again in September, so I encourage everybody out there to get vaccinated so we can protect each other.
I'm Coach Bernie Tarr, and let's play our role and get vaccinated.
For your future, for my future, for our future, let's keep Belize safe.
Galen University, promoting academic excellence, sustainable development, and lifelong learning. Visit our website at www.galen.edu.bz and remember to follow us on our social media for more.
Welcome back to the Galen Hour. This is episode 1, season 2 of our Galen Hour. We have with us tonight Celso and Jamal from the Belize Zoo. We're having quite an interesting conversation, so if you've just joined us, you're not too late to join in the fun and the discussion. Welcome back, gentlemen. So we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about snakes. And like I said earlier to you, that I am particularly interested in why we're seeing so many snakes around the country. And so is it mating season? Is it something happening with climate change? Is it because of the hurricane season? I don't know. Maybe you guys can help us understand why they're visiting our homes instead of staying out in their homes.
Before Jamal provide the answer for you, the snake, they're one of the interesting species that we have at the zoo because there's a lot of fear, a lot of misconception about snake, and so you find that when kids go to the zoo, they go with a fear for snakes, but when we take out the boa constrictor, when we take out Balboa. And kids get one first-hand experience and they get one little talk about the role of snake in the environment, we tend to get some attitudinal change towards snake, and that's what we hope the zoo would do over time, right? But to answer your question about why we have snakes everywhere right now, I think Jamal has some ideas for you.
Ideas. Okay, well, we want to hear. Jamal, help us to understand.
Sure. I think in general, so before we scale it down to where you live in Belize City and so on, you had asked if there's a climate change link. Most likely there is. Obviously, like with every other animal, increase in fires or flooding out of areas will cause them to seek shelter, to seek areas that aren't on fire, or to seek dry ground. If there are more births happening, there's more competition for resources. So they're out looking for food and so on. So there most likely are going to be links to climate change. We literally sometimes we're trying to put out a fire, for example, here in the savannah. And one after the other, you see reptiles, including snakes, popping up, severely overheated. They don't even realize that there's people there, including Tomigoff and other dangerous snakes, just trying to get to safety. But for the urban areas, there's a different dynamic there. And this has no offense to anybody in the neighborhood, but I will say that boas and other species that specialize in rodent hunting, barn owls, for example, are drawn to areas that have a lot of rodents in area, and this is usually linked to challenges with waste disposal. So if there's garbage and stuff like that not being picked up or not being disposed of correctly, then obviously that draws in animals that are considered pests by us, usually rodents, and the animals that specialize in eating those are snakes, especially the boas, right? And again, I haven't looked at it closely enough, but I have heard that there have been challenges in Belize City with garbage collection and so on. I have several friends that have put it on social media and take it to the news and so on. I know there's limitations right now. So the fact that it isn't being cleared up on a regular basis might contribute to the boom, so to speak, in food for these animals, and they're looking for it and they're trying to get their easy sources of food. And as you said, you asked why they're not staying in their homes and coming into ours. We have to be mindful of the fact too that we are expanding into their homes. So as communities expand and enter into these previously wild areas, you will have more and more encounters with wildlife. And for the most part, we can coexist, but obviously no one wants to have a big boy in their backyard or in their stove or their kitchen and so on. So for the most part, the boas especially are not venomous. They're not lethal to humans. They just need to be safely removed, right, and relocated. So there is something to be said for the rodent issue and so on might be contributing to it. Might be more rains. They're trying to find dry spaces, and a nice stove is definitely dry for them.
Definitely.
But in those cases, there are people that can respond, that can provide either advice or direct removal of the animals.
So you mean I shouldn't have killed my visitors? I should have removed them safely?
You could have, yes. Yeah, there are, and again, if it's something that the people and the residents don't feel comfortable doing, there are people you can call on. The forestry department responds. We have other NGO partners that do human-animal conflict response and remove them to safe areas, because they are useful. Ultimately, they're free pest control, right? There's no need to kill them. They just remove them out of a threatening situation and let them do their job, which is keep the rodent population in check.
Yes, Jamal, I hear you.
There are two species. There are two species that Belizean people afraid for. One of them the boa, and the other one the barn owl. So we associate the barn owl with death. So if we see the barn owl around our homes, we think somebody is dead or dead the visit we home. But those two species are very important. They're natural pest control for us. And so when people remove these animals from the environment, then you could see a boom, because you don't have natural predators to control the pest population. So the rats definitely are good food for snakes, the boa constrictor, and the barn owls. I mean, barn owls remove a lot of pests from the environment.
Especially in these urban areas.
You guys have me worrying, and I was always of the opinion that my space is clean and I don't have rodents running around. I take precaution, but I have snake visiting me, and we have two beautiful big owls that every so often, they're white. I don't know if they're barn owls, but they have, they show up in my backyard. I have no grass, and I've always wondered, why do they come in my yard? They sit on the basketball rim, and I'm like, the yard next to me is full of grass. I mean,
that's probably where they're hunting then.
So they're looking for somebody, but they need to not hunt in my yard, because they have me. You all have me worrying now. I need to do more. Well, thank you, gentlemen, because we've heard quite a few people talk about seeing snakes, and it really made me wonder what happened. There seemed to have been a proliferation of snakes recently.
Correct, and it might be tied to that. But one thing we also want to advise Belizeans, because there are actually a lot of, especially on social media, people share. There's a fantastic group called Creatures of Belize on Facebook that anybody when need one ID, then throw up one photo with a snake or with this bug. But unfortunately, a lot of the time, people preemptively kill any snake they see. That's been the culture for a long time. And then after the fact, I say, oh, I'm with this, swim it in my yard. We have 62 species of snakes in Belize, and out of those, there are only 8 that are considered venomous, to the point where if they were, in theory, to bite a human, they can potentially deliver a lethal bite. It's not guaranteed. There are many people that have, and even pets. We know many people and their pets that have been bitten by Tommy Goff or so on and live to tell a tale. So it's not a death sentence.
Okay.
But now to whittle it down, out of those 8, most of them are deep forest dwellers. So you might, the 2 or 3 you might see the most are the Tommy Goff that everybody know, the rattlesnake, and the coral snake. The coral snake I would eliminate too, because they're so small, they don't have the big fangs or the big mouth, that you really have to pick up this animal and harass it for it to try and bite you. The fer-de-lance, to be fair, I will say are more aggressive. They'll defend themselves more readily if they're stepped near or so on. But again, most of the snakes we have in Belize are non-lethal. They keep to themselves. They're small. They hunt frogs and stuff like that. So it's not every snake, and there are some that look very similar to the venomous snakes, and that's probably where the impulse to eliminate them comes from, right? But they aren't actually threatening to humans. So the vast majority of snakes we encounter, even the venomous ones, will not engage you unless they're directly threatened. They're not going to chase you down the road or come after you. They want to live as much as the other, and we as humans are capable of crushing or killing these animals. So in some ways we are just as dangerous to them as they are to us. So just to help put people at ease, there is a lot of opportunities to coexist with these animals. Not every single encounter will be a negative one.
I think they just got a bad rap. Blame Adam and Eve. Correct. I mean, from way back in the days, they kind of branded snakes as...
Yes, there is.
They need to be
and there's something to be said with culture and the influence of religion and so on our perceptions, even of the owls. So as Celso mentioned, in our culture, in cultures in other countries in Latin America and even in Africa, owls are seen as death heralds. In some other cultures like Native American and so on, they are seen as bringers of wisdom, and they're seen as allies. So it really just depends on your upbringing and the stories you were raised on. But ultimately, these animals are animals. They don't have any mystical powers. They're not from any deity. Like all animals, they have a function that has outlived humans. They've been around doing their job for years. They're going to be here probably beyond us. So we have to learn how to coexist with them, right?
Yes, we do.
I appreciate what they bring to the table.
Yes, we do. And each creature that roams this earth has a purpose. And so,
correct.
Yes. So thank you for that. I think that helps with understanding what was going on. But I do want us to talk a bit about the Galen and the zoo relationship, and the fact that we're currently in the process of signing a memorandum of understanding with the zoo. In our last season, we had on a show that spoke about our veterinary technician program, and we had weren't able to bring the zoo on for that one, but I know that quite a bit goes on at the zoo with respect to animals and taking care of them, and we currently have an MOU. So Celso, you know what is in the MOU. We do want to have a relationship, and we've already started the relationship, quite honestly. It's just now formalizing what's going on, where we are able to have our students intern at the zoo. You want to speak a little bit more about the zoo's side of this understanding?
So the zoo naturally is a good place for a vet technician, veterinarian to come and work and gain hands-on experience. We have one particular vet that we work with here in Belize, Dr. Philip Deshiel.
Okay.
And most of our veterinary work are done in consultation with vets from abroad, vets from various universities. Thanks to technology, we can actually work with the camera and the vets from abroad. So we have several groups of veterinarian students cycling through the zoo on a yearly basis. So it would be very costly for the zoo to provide the veterinary service and care that we provide for the animals in our care. So we work these partnerships with universities in the States. We have at least 3 of them that send on veterinarians and senior vet students to work with our team at the Belize Zoo. We don't have any qualified vet tech or veterinarian on staff, so we rely heavily on outside assistance.
Okay.
So when the idea came up, was pitched by Galen University for us to partner, I saw it as a win-win for both institutions. So we get these vets come down and they can provide internship, they can provide experience for our Belizean vet tech students at Galen University. And then Galen is providing us with 2 full scholarship for 2 of our staff to get trained, to get an associates in vet tech.
Yes.
And of course, we like that. As I said, it's a win-win for both institutions, but it's also going to benefit the students them. they get hands-on experience. When we get these veterinarians coming from the US, they bring down some of the most high-tech equipment in the vet field. Like we have to go for them with a trailer because they're bringing everything. I mean, when we have a vet clinic at the zoo that we built, and when we have surgeries, I mean, we have done like, so some people don't know, but when some of these problem cats come to the zoo, where we have human-jaguar conflict, some of these cats, they have their canine missing. Sometimes the canine is decaying, it's infected, you need to take it out. They come down and they do root canal, they do all kind of work on these cats. You have cats that have broken bones, they have to do surgery on them, put pins in them. And so it would be a great opportunity for our Belizean students to work along with these veterinarians and their students coming to Belize. So
certainly.
We're proud to be partnering with Galen with this. Being a graduate of Galen University, I'm glad I'm in a position to facilitate this. And I look forward to having the students at the zoo.
Yes, so we too are proud. We are proud that we are able to forge this relationship. It is a symbiotic one. Both of us will gain from it. It gives our students a new angle in terms when it comes to interning and learning, because most of the times we think about domesticated pets when you think about vets. Now we are beginning to realize there's a whole world, an opportunity out there for vets to deal with wildlife. And you just mentioned how in Belize we don't really have anybody necessarily trained. Yes, you do have your vets that you work with. So it is a fantastic opportunity all around. I think part of what Galen is hoping to get out of this as well is a course in wildlife health that we can offer. And so we hope to see that come to fruition over the course of our collaborating. And so
something big is nutrition. You know, animal nutrition is a big subject because a lot of people go to the zoo, you know, and they try feed for we animals human food. You know, even though we try our best to stop any food from going into the zoo, but if we have more people understand the role of nutrition in wildlife, I think it would be very helpful because they can spread the word out there. You know, I mean, people think monkey eat only banana, you know.
Yeah.
But they get a balanced diet.
Okay.
I mean, the tapir, they eat about 50 pounds of food for the day. That has to be balanced. They're not just lone leaf. Even though they're vegetarian, they have to get their proteins, they have to get their minerals, everything they have to get. So animal nutrition, wildlife nutrition is another important component. So
I wanted to ask
it's a good start for us.
Yes, it is. Is there a program going on? I'm asking because my daughter has said, oh, I have animals that I want to go feed at the zoo. So I'm assuming, and she does this along with her father, so I'm assuming there's a program where you can contribute funds to help feed animals. And maybe you can share some information on that and encourage other Belizeans to do same and help with the sustenance of our zoo and our animals.
Right. It's not feed the animal. We provide an enrichment for the animal.
Oh, so they feel like they're feeding the animal.
We have to be careful how we coin these terms, right? but Jamal can talk to us about the enrichment we provide for wildlife at the zoo.
Okay.
Sure. So this touches on, we had talked at the beginning about the services the zoo offers, no? So part of that is the visitor services or the connections we have. So I'll start there, and that's probably what your daughter is referring to. So we do have animal experiences at the zoo that we offer to any visitor, and these are led and supervised by our staff. So it's not that any guide or anybody could walk in and just go touch and feed the animals. As also said, it goes beyond that. This is led or approved by our animal care and management department. So basically the keepers and the curator that are in charge of the well-being, the welfare, the overall thriving of these animals can say what is the best thing to provide to them for some meaningful enrichment. So the main ones we have are for the tapir, for example. I believe the toucan is still one that we do where there's an encounter with the jaguar. But I'll use the tapir as an example. So for that, the visitors can pay a fee. They are taken over by a zookeeper. They're escorted there, and they will choose an item, a food item that is beneficial to that tapir, that is part of their diet that they were probably going to get anyway that day, or adding to what they would get, and they get a supervised feeding. But while they're doing that, it's more than just feed the animal, take a photo, go. They are learning who that animal is, why they're feeding that specific item. They're learning about their diet, their role in the environment, their culture, etc. So it's that's why it's more than it's more of an experience and a learning encounter, as well as doing something fun, which is feed the national animal of the zoo, right? And that's like a one-off. We do have more elaborate programs at the zoo where Belizeans especially, and this is what we really want to promote, where Belizeans can become a part of the zoo in their own right, in a very strategic way. So so may I ask Ms. Diana, for example, how old is your daughter? Just so I can frame, because we have a couple. Okay, all right. So one program we have for like teenagers and so on, especially when they're at school, is the one that I think all of us knew doing high school, which was the career experience or career training, right? So we do have secondary and tertiary level Belizean students that are, once they write through the institution or their school writes on their behalf, they can get placed to work at the zoo. They work side by side with our animal care and education departments and learn the ropes of what it takes to keep the zoo thriving in those two major pillars. And so that is done. That's something we used to do a lot pre-COVID. We literally just had our first university student in, I think, over almost 2 years from UB that spent a 7-year placement with us, and really had a good opportunity. For adults, what we've now started recently is a more long-term volunteer program. So any Belizean citizen or resident can sign up for this. This is for people 21 years or older, and they go through an application process. We ask them for submitting their letter of interest, why they want to work at the zoo, maybe some skill sets they bring to the table, their interest, their passion. And similarly, they go through a program where they won't be like walking in to feed the jaguars right away. There's several phases to get to that point, to build up your skill set and your rapport with the staff to make sure that it gets there. But initially, they'll see again what it really takes to keep the zoo running. It's a lot more than just feed the animals and go home. There is, preparing the food for the animals. There is keeping the upkeep of the pathways of the general landscape of the zoo, repairs to exhibits, interacting with visitors. So this past Independence Day, for example, we debuted the exhibit for our tamanduá, Archie, who was rescued last year, as also mentioned, after a forest fire. He has a bit of a following. We've been posting about Archie, the baby tamanduá, the anteater. And so we encourage everyone to come and see him on the 21st. And a lot of people came and first question out them, "What's Archie Day?" So they went to see him, and we had 2 of our volunteers stationed there to be able to make it more than just, all right, we say Archie, we're going home. They were able to deliver his story, talk about his adaptations, threats his species faces. So the volunteers become part of the life at the zoo and can be part of making that connection that we try to make on a daily basis. So they really become part of the zoo's family and mission in that way. So that's something that we offer to Belizeans. As I mentioned, they can reach out to the zoo to find out more if they really want to get involved and support the zoo, giving their time and their energies to keeping us moving forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's not just wildlife, because we need other skill set.
Correct.
We need other skill set. Pre-COVID, the zoo had about 58 staff members. At the peak of COVID, we went down to 32 staff members. And since tourism picked up a little bit for us over the summer, we're back up to 42 staff members.
Okay.
So we're short. But despite that, the idea of bringing on volunteers, volunteerism isn't a big thing in Belize. We wanted to really catch on. And so these zoo volunteers will be the next voice for the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center. They have to commit to at least a minimum of 60 hours per year, 60 hours of volunteer work per year. And then, as Jamal said, they gradually move up to start like taking on roles on a regular basis. For example, if we have an event like we recently had with Archie, they are the people who are going to be the voice for us, because that is how I feel that Belizeans will come to appreciate more of our wildlife and more of what go on behind the scenes at the zoo. Because a lot of people come to the zoo and, like you said, see everything look green and nice, and the animal and look healthy. But when we get the feedback from the first set of volunteers we had about 3 weeks ago, man, they were tired. They couldn't believe the amount of work the zookeepers and the staff put in at the zoo on a daily basis for these animals. And so I am very proud of the Belize Zoo volunteer program, and I hope to see it grow. I hope to see more Belizeans embrace it. At the end of the day, this Belize Zoo, the Belizeans,
it is.
We're only custodians of the zoo for the people of Belize.
Yes. And it's good for people to know that you don't only have to donate your money, but you can donate your time. And I like to know, and I'm hoping our listening audience realizes that there's opportunity to volunteer your time for the entire year. And most schools ask students to do voluntary work. And this may very well be an option that could be explored more often. So I'm happy to hear that. I wanted to, because we're beginning to run out of time, our show is really an hour long, but I cannot talk to the zoo and not talk about the harpy eagle. I mentioned it earlier in the beginning of the show, but Galen University has decided that part of what we will do on a yearly and on an annual basis is come to the zoo, visit the harpy eagles, watch Panama put on a show for us, and make a donation to support and in support of harpy. Well, it's in support of the zoo, but we've particularly named the animal that we want to sponsor. The harpy eagle is our mascot. We know it represents prowess. It is a powerful eagle. Is it a native of Belize? I know it's native of the region. It's a native of Belize. Well, you said earlier that it's only natives of Belize that we house at our zoo. Jamal?
Correct. It absolutely is a native species. And just very briefly, you had mentioned you love the names and the origin stories of the animals. So Panama and his neighbor next door, the Queen, are the last points of a program that the zoo was a part of in the early 2000s to receive and release these animals back into a native part of their range. So they were captive bred in Panama, hence his namesake. And we received 15 eagles over a 6-year period from 2003 to 2009, released into the Rio Bravo in northern Belize. Panama damaged his eye when he was hatching, so he was considered non-releasable, which is why he was intentionally reared to be an ambassador animal, right? And that's his role at the zoo. Apart from those ones that were released, though, harpies are found in Belize naturally. They've been seen in the Chicky Bull, for example, in the Bladen in the south. And of course, as we mentioned, we did release a bunch in the Rio Bravo. So they're the most powerful eagle we have and one of the largest in the region. So as you said, they do represent prowess, and they are one of the more iconic species. I mean, birders from all over the world would kill for a chance to see a live harpy eagle in the wild. So it is a big draw and something that Belize should be proud of, that we can say those animals are so native and living in our forests.
Yes, definitely. And we are proud of what it represents. For Galen, we believe that when you're a Galen graduate, when you're a Galen student, you really are getting the best of the best, and you're going to soar just like a harpy eagle does when you set out from our university and enter into the world. Celso is a perfect example. We're so proud of you, Celso. So taking over, we are proud of you too, Jamal, but I just have to give our eagle a little bit more kudos. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been fantastic. And we're out of time, so I do want to thank you so very much for joining us today. I want to give you a quick half a minute or minute each to give some last words. Is there anything you want to say, any appeal on behalf of the zoo? Please do so now.
Well, I want to thank Galen University for having us. Also, I want to thank Galen and the management and board there for the partnership we've created with the Vet Tech program and the veterinary experience at the zoo. and most importantly, for the contribution and the commitment they've made to adapting Panama on a yearly basis. Panama is a big eater and Panama eat meat, so that contribution will go a long way to help support Panama.
Well, we're happy to hear. Jamal, do you want to, any last words?
Sure. Just to echo Celso's sentiments, and again, we do encourage more Belizeans to get involved. One way they can is they can emulate Galen, and we do have an adoption program where people can sponsor an animal for a year. But secondly, and more recently, the one we just talked about, where we do encourage Belizeans to reach out and find out how they can donate their time, their energy, their skills to the zoo and its evolution and its growth.
Okay, thank you. This has been quite an enjoyable show. I thank you for your time. I know both of you are busy and you are so willing to adapt to our changes and our last minute changes. We thank you. I think I totally enjoyed it, and I do believe our viewing audience, enjoyed this as well. I know there's so much more we could talk about, but I think what we did talk about tonight is a lot of information. It really gets us to know more and helps us to appreciate better what our zoo does for our country and our people. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, I'll do our closing.
Galen University is offering a Master's in Development Studies program starting this spring semester, January 2022. A general information session will be held on October 8, 2021 from 12 o'clock noon to 1 o'clock p.m. For more information on how to join us, contact us at 615-3129.
Welcome back to the Galen Hour. We're in the final segment of our show, and I'll be wrapping up for the night. So we talked about sustainability, which becomes a really important topic because of climate change, just because we need to leave our Earth for the future generation to be able to meet their needs. And so when we talk sustainability, the term might seem a little foreign, but all we're saying is that we need to use the resources we have available now in a fashion that leaves our future generation intact and that they can meet their needs. So it becomes so important as we face climate change. We're in a pandemic time, so sometimes we forget how important it is for us to not lose focus of the fact that we need to do better with our Earth, and we need to do things to mitigate and to adapt to climate change, because it's real and it's here. So 3 very important pillars of sustainable development is environment. And when we talk about the zoo, we're really focusing on the environment, also the social impact that it has, and the economic impact. And so those are 3 key factors to the survival of our country. We do offer a master's degree at Galen University, which is a master's in development studies, and we'll touch on a lot of what is important to the development and growth of our country, and it can only do so from a sustainable perspective. So I encourage our Belizeans who are working in NGOs, in developmental organizations, in our government, to come to Galen to explore the opportunities that we do have available for you to grow and to grow yourselves, as well as to assist with the growth of our country. On that note, I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure talking to Jamal and Celso this evening. We're always here on Love on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. We are going to stream live on Galen Facebook page and Love's Facebook page. And we will replay on Sundays just to ensure that you get to join us for our fantastic topics and education. Galen focus is on academic excellence, sustainable development, and lifelong learning. It gives me a pleasure to be the host of the Galen Hour. See you here, same place, same time, on Thursday, October 7th. Thank you and good night.
On the lovely hills of Galen, purest mountains rose and fell, watering the western gardens, where our students now excel, reaching higher, sister, brother, ever pacing one another, visions glowing